Welcome to the video of a 5-day art trip. The most insane trip I had so far in my life. First time traveling with a kid. Папа, когда ты последний раз летал на самолете?
89 год.
Last time my dad took a plane was in '89.
The airport in my country has 6 gates, and the airport in Istanbul has 6 departments of gates with 19 gates each, minimum.
On the first day we took 2 planes with a layover in Istanbul.
So after
Am pierdut ochelari și deșovăi și îmi pare rău. Ori mamta i-o scos și-o băgat ciora.
So after the airport we
Dacă i-am
took
pierdut mare brânză, nu s-a întâmplat.
Traveling with the adult when you are the adult in the trip is no easy job. And my dad is not accustomed to my blogger career.
So after the airport we took one fast train and a metro train, and I thought I will die because it's very confusing, especially with the tickets and directions, but we made it.
We got to the hotel just fine, even though it was really stressing. I'm not accustomed to the transport there. We had a good rest and then we decided to go for a walk and finally see the city. Because according to our schedule, we had just this evening and the next morning in Amsterdam. Then we had to go to the ship. And even though one day is very little for Amsterdam, it's barely nothing. We had just a glimpse and it was marvelous.
They all say it's very complicated to travel with kids, but no one tells you that grown-up adults are even worse.
As both me and my dad are artists, we went photo hunting in the city and we found a lot of hidden gems and took photos for future paintings. Even though I was well aware about the things going on in Amsterdam, it was very surprising when you want to look at the church, but you found yourself in the red light district. Here is a tip for people going there photo hunting. Do not take photos with the houses where you see naked girls. Even though no naked girl was on our photos, we were asked to delete them, and it's just not a pleasant encounter. Also, the seagulls in the city add an extra bonus to the atmosphere.
Now a small room tour to our room that was like 300 euros per night. It's not big, but I like the design. It's very nice and cozy and clean. After a very stressing travel with the tram stations, train system is very stressing for me, sorry. In my country we have very cheap and very usable public transport.
We finally made it to the Reich Museum. I am so glad I opted to visit this museum even though we had limited time. I opted to buy the tickets online in order not to spend our morning in the long line, and apparently it was the best decision ever, as we entered very fast and we didn't spend any time in lines.
Want to see the Risk Museum but you have only 3 hours? Here's what you can manage.
The museum has 4 floors, including the ground floor, and it's absolutely huge. We started from the 2nd floor where the main attraction of the museums are placed, such as Rembrandt paintings and Vermeer paintings. You would also want to come early because it's very crowded and there are tons of people. Because my dad is not accustomed to traveling and to such big museums, he was very anxious that we will miss our ship, and he was rushing me over and over again to leave the museum earlier. But I decided not to listen to him, of course, and continue my walk. Unfortunately, Rembrandt's biggest painting, The Night Watch, was in the process of restoration and we hadn't a good view on it, but it was still marvelous. I'm a very huge fan of Dutch and Flemish still lifes, and it was very surprising for me to find the actual objects that were used in still lifes. I could make good photos of them and maybe use them in my future paintings. Of course, people who won't let you see the paintings and just talk in front of them were not absent. And I never thought in my life that I will see my favorite Vermeer painting live. You can guess which one is it in the comments. I am so devastated and sad that we didn't manage to see absolutely everything in the museum, but we had a fast run to the first floor. We passed briefly through it, and it was not less amazing than the second one. I even managed to do like 2 sketches. I hoped to do more, but we were out of time. My biggest regret so far is not getting a Flemish glass like in the still lives. It was not that expensive, like 35 euros, but it was fragile. Too fragile for our crazy trip, and right now we were on our way to the ship. It was amazing how the weather was changing from hour to hour, from rainy to sunny and super rainy again. Luckily, we got there on time even before we were about to board. But there was this moment they didn't want to let us go on the boat because they thought we're going to Ireland, not to Iceland. But it worked. They listened to us and we're here. Cruise ship room tour. Starting with Dada. Very nice bottom, very clean. Good. My dog. TV and the most important. And it's very cold. Because it's our first cruise, we were super excited and we were not accustomed to everything that was happening on the ship. The food was absolutely delicious and you can choose yourself what you want to eat at breakfast, lunch, dinner, so it's no problem if you have your own preferences. We were highly recommended to go out to see how the ship is leaving the port, and indeed it was a very beautiful sight. Looking at the sky, you would never think that 1 hour ago it was raining heavily. I understood very fast that a cruise ship is a floating city on the water. It has absolutely anything and everything you need, and even more. And here we get to the heart of this video. On this ship was my dad's first art auction, and these are his paintings. And if you ask yourself, why am I there? I was my dad's translator because he doesn't know English, so I had a lot of work to do. And the night before the first auction, we had our presentation with microphones on a stage. It was absolutely stressing. Luckily, the people there were very warm and welcoming, so we had a good time in the end. And I even managed to sketch my dad's first sale. After we were finished with the art auctions, we had a lot of free time, so we spent it going to presentations of other artists and also going on walks on the ship.
Museum in Malaga, which is where he was born, and they were talking about how his vision of reducing things, minimalistic lines, the greatest graphic work Picasso ever created. Out of the works we have in our collection here for you this cruise, this is one of 2 works that would be considered a masterpiece. Any work by a master is a master work.
And eventually, I took that up to Laguna Beach, and that's where I had a gallery discover me. You know, they're like, hey man, you got to paint some canvas. I said, well, I actually do. They're all in my apartment. So I started bringing those out to the park, and I sold a few of those for like $150, $300.
I would also consider this cruise boat a bit of a museum, because on it were so many good paintings, like amazing paintings. Like these are the Picasso prints hand signed by him, and they were for sale for like huge amounts of money. Also, there were the Rembrandt prints and Dürer ones. And I guess the Rembrandt and the Dürer ones are my favorite so far, even though some Picasso prints stole my heart as well. I feel so lucky that I managed to record bits of presentations, because the way that person was speaking about those artists, that's just priceless. I wish someday somebody would talk about my art the way they were talking about Picasso or Dürer or Rembrandt. My dad exhibited this time a few Venice views and seascapes, and a few of them remained on the easels, but I hope not for long. It was extremely refreshing to get out of the studios, both me and my dad, and speak to real human beings, real artists, and see how they act in public and interact with people who buy their art. Because if you're accustomed to how artists usually live, they are like little hermits inside their houses and never get out and never speak to anyone. So it's a very good experience. This is the last full day on the ship that we have left, and after that we disembark in Iceland, in a small town, and we have to take 3 flights. Looking at the waves was very tempting to go and take a bath in them, but I don't know if I'll ever survive that. So for now, I would recommend you to enjoy some bits of the Dürer presentations.
So you're going to see lots of different elements within the work, because this is going to be where you're going to see that Italian influence. Whereas before, in the Gothic era, you have very lean characters. Here, slightly fuller characters, and it's much more aesthetically pleasing. One of those beautiful works that Dürer ever did. And you're going to see, once again, so much detail. And I just want to highlight 4 elements of humanity, from the pensive bull, from the stag being always wary, the cat always looking on the hunt, and the hare over here always wanting to play. This is because this is before original sin. Again, Dürer, such depth within his works of art. Before original sin, all these different elements of humanity were getting along in peace. But then they took a bite of the apple, you'll see the snake, and the world was thrown into chaos. Absolutely astonishing work, once again, from the detail, all the way in the back, little goat on top of the hill over there, is the apple tree, the forbidden fruit, the detailing over there, the musculature, everything absolutely astonishing. It's Adam and Eve, and it is also considered one of the most significant works of art Dürer ever created. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Melancholia. It is the single most written about artwork in human history. 500 years of art history, this is seen as probably the greatest achievement in graphic art ever. The depth here, the perspective, everything plays together. Now, again, 500 years of writing about this artwork, I can talk about this for a very long time and not even cover 1%. I'm not going to do that now. But I want to highlight just a few of the key elements of the artwork. This is going to be seen as a psychological self-portrait. Dürer here was talking about the human condition and the conflict between understanding the limits of your own talents. So you have the angel on this side, absolutely perfect. And around the angel, you're going to see the tools of craft. You're going to see a plane, you're going to see a saw, you're going to see the nails. On this side, you're going to see the putu. That little angel, this little angel, he doesn't care, he just wants to create. And that's going to be the playful side inside of Dürer coming through in the work of art. Down here, you're going to see the juxtaposition of a square, which normally would be solid, but Dürer wanted, this is called Dürer's square, or Dürer's, what's the word for it? Dürer's block, basically, with its corners cut off, showing his absolute mastery of perspective. Down here, the sphere, creating imbalance, but yet it is at peace. And once again, take a look. You seen that Rembrandt was amazing at using light and dark? Dürer was already doing that, but doing it all by hand. Not with the subtlety of acid, where you can kind of cover it and correct your mistakes. He couldn't do that. Everything carved meticulously by hand. Now, if we talk about detail, folks, look at the detailing in the cloth. Looking at even the ribs of the loyal dog. All the way into up here, you're going to see the shading on that hourglass. That hourglass, whenever that appears, that's going to be memento mori. Remember that our time on Earth is limited. Up here, you're going to see the magic square. Each line, each column, each diagonal adds up to 34, a very special number during the time. You're going to see lots of different elements over there. You're going to see the shooting star. That would have been a comet that fell in Norway during the time that Dürer might have had a chance to see, just a couple of years before this work was created. And then down here at the bottom, 1514, which is going to be the year that the artwork was created. And just to give you an idea, you'll see the artwork is astonishingly detailed. If you go close to the actual work of art, now you're going to need a magnifying glass, because right here is a sailboat. That's about the size of a grain of sand. But when you look at it under a microscope or under a magnifying glass, it's a perfect boat. This is what made Dürer's artwork just so absolutely fantastic. It was revered worldwide in the time.
Here is a close-up of Melancholia, which sold for 645 grams. And right after it, an ugly sketch of the beautiful library on the ship. While traveling, I try not to pay attention to the sketches I make rather than just enjoy the moment. So the actual cruise, the full cruise, has 14 days and it goes back to Amsterdam. So because we have weak passports, we did that, and we had a few here and there hours to walk in Iceland. And for people who are planning to travel there, I recommend to take more money with you because it's a bit expensive. Akureyri turned out a small town, but a very cute one.
If you want to save like 200 euros on taxi to go to airport in Akureyri, you can go by foot. It's only like 30 minutes. The airport is right there.
So again, because my dad is very anxious, we made our way to the airport and waited there for like 7 hours for our flight, which was 45 minutes. And then we were surprised that we had to rush to a completely other airport in Reykjavik to catch our next flight. So the next few hours were calm, but after that, pure stress. Here are some sketches I made in the airport while waiting, and they're rather nice. And tip for people who have a lot of layovers in airports: check, please check at what airport you arrive and from what airport is your next flight. This is the key to success, and this is the road to the Keflavik airport in Reykjavik. And thank God we made it just fine, just in time for our next 2 flights. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more strange art videos.